In the past few years, the wealth gap debate has risen to be one of the hottest issues the world is facing, with many throwing out options relating to higher taxation or mass redistribution of wealth. In this piece, we'll take a look at how the rich are getting richer and what differences in approach they use versus the average person. But before we get started on this list, there are two things worth mentioning. One, there needs to be a reward for working harder than everyone else. And two, rich people are not hoarding money. They actually have it spread out in other people's companies or investments. And this is really important because unless we can reward those who perform well, there wouldn't be an incentive to do great things. And this is a very popular misconception. People think that rich folks have a room in their house filled with gold coins because that's what they saw in Scrooge McDuck cartoons. When in reality, the amount of money you hear is a valuation based on how much money you could possibly get if you were to sell everything of value today. Okay, so with these two things out of the way, here are the 15 reasons why the rich are getting richer. Welcome to ALUX, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Starting off at number 1, they think bigger than everyone else. This is one of the fundamental differences between the rich and the average. In order to be rich, you need to solve bigger problems. While the average person concerns themselves with issues related to themselves, the rich are figuring out ways to build companies that can serve millions of people. This think big mentality is the foundation of wealth building. Truth be told, it takes almost the same amount of effort to build something small as it does to build something big. So if you're gonna think about something anyway, you might as well think big. Number 2, they have money ready for opportunities. One of the reasons the rich keep getting richer is because they always have money lined up for opportunities. That's why the middle class and poorer class think of rich people as cheap. They're saving money. But here's the simple truth. Let's say we've got two people. One has money saved, ready to invest in opportunities, while the other doesn't. The same opportunity presents itself to both individuals. Because person A has the money to access it, their personal wealth will grow, while person B will remain the same. This is a fundamental reason why some people move ahead, while others never move at all. Number 3, they have value-based, long-term investments they don't touch. This is where things get interesting. Let's keep the comparison going.
Oh, we are ready to start working here. By Friday, we need to open here. Yes, I do believe in capitalism, that if you work hard, then you need to benefit.
Yes, I think capitalism is slavery. To be poor means to be a beggar, to be always asking. It kills the person in you, the human being in you. So that's how costly poverty is.
Being poor is difficult. When I'm climbing the ladder, things can happen, things go wrong, and then a couple of rungs of the ladder can get broken, and you fall down to the bottom again, so you've got to start climbing again.
I think everybody has a chance, and it's been proved time and time again. To sit down and resent somebody who's got more than you, in my book, is unacceptable, because there's no reason that you couldn't be in that place, because you've got every opportunity.
Being rich or poor? Is it destiny, luck, or something else entirely? With the gap between rich and poor growing ever wider, how can people continue to see eye to eye?
My name is Princess Manukulebogang Majola. It's a name I got from my dad because at that time I was the princess. With the work that I do, washing people's laundry and filling out forms, I'm able to pay my rent. At some point, it was bad that I had to sell some of my stuff just to make sure that I have a roof over my head. My mother was a kitchen girl. My father was a garden boy.
When the former president, Nelson Mandela, said people must stop complaining that unemployment is high in the country, people must stop complaining that crime is high, he asked, what are you doing in your own capacity to create jobs or curb crime? That touched me and I said, let me make a difference. My name is Sakumzi Maqubela. I come from Soweto, South Africa, township in Johannesburg. I'm a businessman. I run Sakumzi restaurant in the very famous Vilakazi Street, Soweto, that has been running for 23 years. Sakumzi means we are building a home.
Really?
Yes. It's the only restaurant between the Archbishop Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela, with 2 Nobel Peace Prize winners.
All right.
The Archbishop used to stay in this house next door.
Really?
Yes. We lead and I will be in charge. All right, but so far so good, guys. In Soweto, I can say I'm a biggest employer. It's more than 1,000 people working because we've got 10 more restaurants. When we started in 2001, there was no economy in Vilakazi Street, meaning there was no one exchanging money. People were coming in and out. We are making a difference in the economy of Soweto.
South Africa is one of Africa's most developed economies. Yet, it's also one of the most unequal countries in the world. The legacy left by colonialism and apartheid, rooted in racial and spatial segregation, has created a death spiral of inequality in income, education, quality of health, and household living conditions, where the black population, and black women in particular, suffer the most.
My name is Liz Brewer, and I live in Belgravia. Belgravia is just an area of London. You've got Buckingham Palace nearby. You've got some of the most stately London homes around.
I've been to Chelsea or Kensington, but that's only when I'm playing Monopoly. I'm receiving benefits at present. It's about £320 per month, which isn't that much really compared to how much the prices have gone up for different food and drink and whatnot. My name is Jamie Burnham and I live in Hackney. I haven't worked for about 5.5 years now.
There's poverty and there's poverty. There's people who've got used to not working and being given handouts, and they've liked that lifestyle. It's this feeling that they're entitled to being given it.
Without the food banks, I would find it extremely difficult to cope.
I mean, take me to the nearest food bank here. Show it to me.
There is more food banks than there are McDonald's in the UK, which is difficult to believe, but there is.
Despite Britain being one of the richest countries in the world, 20% of its population, that's 14 million people, live in poverty. The costs of housing, food, and energy have hit people on low incomes hardest. And state benefits have been eroded over the preceding decades, forcing almost 3 million people to rely on 2,500 food banks for survival.
We need to tell volunteers that it's 1 Weetabix, not two.
Right,
Yeah. So there's Weetabix, there's plenty of it down here.
Last week we had
380, 340-ish.
Collecting, and I think we've been collected for,
Yeah. There you go.
which is the biggest we've ever had.
How many people are you collecting for?
Oh, just myself.
Just yourself, okay. If you go around that way.
Thank you.
Would you like some milk? Do you
Yeah,
have normal milk or soya milk?
no, just normal milk, please. Thank you.
Would you like some cereal?
You
You can have porridge.
yes, I have some porridge, please. Yeah, I'll have 1 toilet roll, please.
Could you get it for
Yes, I can. There you go. Thank you very much.
And choose 2 fruits.
Oh,
See, some weeks we have like 5.
yeah, it's just...
This week this has got to stretch for
Yes. Pear, please.
And another one? Tangerine or a banana?
Tangerine, please. I trained for 3 years as a carpenter's apprentice, and the day I passed, I was run over by a car. And I had to wait 7.5 years being temporarily retired because of the brain injury with no work. I couldn't do any heavy lifting or building work ever again because of the brain injury. So that was the 3 years carpentry apprenticeship messed up completely. And I had to go for something else, office work.
Life has been good in the last 10 years. I live with my 3 children and my wife. We've got 2 domestic workers. We've been in Douglasdale for the last 10 years. It's one of those wealthy neighborhoods of Sandton. I get to work 7 days a week and I've got crazy hours. I've got a panel beating shop that has been running for 12 years. From my employees, I expect performance from them. When I hire them, I make it clear that I've hired them to make more money. Most of their parents are in jail. Most of their parents are in ship-ins, meaning pubs. I have to educate them, to tell them that they are special, that they are important in this country. So once they know themselves, they are able to perform and look after our clients because at least they love themselves. I grew up with parents who were working, both of them. Loving parents, loving grandparents. In 1985, my parents had a car accident. I can say I lost it. I could not focus very well. I was acting as if I'm happy. But when you don't have love, when you don't know what is life all about, then you become poor. But later, through reading good books, I had to find myself and accept that whether you've got parents, whether you come from divorced family, you're not special with your problems.
I'm a mother of 4 kids, 3 boys and a daughter. My last born, which is my girl, father passed on. He was actually gunned down in front of his daughter at his parents' home, just at the entrance. She's staying with her grandparents. I can't provide money to pay her fees. That pains me a lot because it's like history is repeating itself. I grew up being raised by my grandmother from my maternal side. My parents split up when I was only 4 years old. After not seeing my mom for a whole year, she came back home. So she spent with us Christmas Day, and on the 31st in the morning, she went back. Only to be met by her death because she was stabbed by her boyfriend at around 5:30 in the evening the same day. I was only turning 11. And life wasn't the same ever again. My boys are out of school. They are sitting at home. They are not working. So they came and requested me to assist them with giving them 300 rand so that they could stock up some cigarettes, some few stuff, some sweets, some chips, so that they can have a table of their own and start selling some things. Sometimes they actually use more than their profit. Then I have to make sure that I find money again to invest. So it's a bit shaky.
From 0 to 18, I can look after my children, but I cannot be there for them forever. I try by all means to teach them how to earn a living rather than to be entitled, because that is what is happening with most of our people in this country.
Democratic elections ended apartheid in 1994, but poverty has continued to be an enduring problem ever since. The country's unemployment rate of 30% is the highest in the world. That means 24 million adults there are barely surviving. At the same time, roughly 1/3 of the total number of millionaires on the African continent live in South Africa.
If I don't have the money to go to the laundrette, I can get 3 buses down to my mum's place in South London, and I'll use my mum's washing machine. Which is probably annoying for my mother, but helpful for me. Hello.
Hello.
How are you keeping?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Nice to see you.
All about to see you.
Oh, please come.
Hello. Well, I have blamed myself before, but then I found that it's no point blaming myself because I'm still trying. I'm looking to get in as a government-paid HGV training and licence.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It'd be
Well,
driving
no,
along.
because it's something that you're good at.
Yeah. I'm still wanting to become employed. I want to work, It is very difficult because I need to earn enough money because I don't want to work and then have to spend 90% of my wages on rent and only have a tiny bit left to live by.
Because how much is your room?
Oh, it would work out at £238 a week.
A week?
A week. And you could fit in this room about 10 of the rooms that I live in. It's tiny. I live in a house which is a 3-bedroom house, but it has been made into 7 different rooms, 7 separate rooms for people to live. And the room that I live in is around about 12 foot by 8 foot. Within that I could fit my double bed. In one corner there is a lavatory, which is very small. There's an attached kitchen, which I can't use because there's no windows or ventilation in there. And within the kitchen is where my shower is. It is all paid for by the housing benefit for me, which is lucky for me, definitely.
Since the 1980s, when those in publicly owned council homes were allowed to buy them outright, Britain's housing system has become increasingly unbalanced, leading to the housing crisis seen today. More and more people who would be eligible for social housing are stuck privately renting unaffordable, poor-quality homes. As private rental prices continue to grow at a record high rate in Britain, many tenants' rents are subsidized by housing benefits going to private landlords, costing the government £23.5 billion per year, almost twice as much as it invests in affordable housing.
I started off living a very conventional life. I was a debutante, which in those days meant that you were supposed to marry into park gates, as it were. And you were taught everything from how to run a household, how to even make a bed properly. You had to have corners. To this day, I do corners for the bed. Having done the season, I didn't want to get married. How about these? Okay. So having run away from home, I went to Portugal and I opened the first discotheque nightclub in the Algarve. It was big news, and so on the opening night, believe it or not, without an airport, 600 people came. There's so much. This is just one. There is so much. Paul McCartney could come and nobody bothered him. It was an extraordinary time. I was always arranging parties for these seriously high flyers like Richard Branson, Dame Shirley Bassey, Ivana Trump. She's arrived. I never understand. Really, what you're doing is
I'm wearing my bling.
Oh my God, you so...
Oh, Jamie Moore. Lovely.
What I really value and appreciate about Mum, she will, just against all odds, make things happen. She works harder than anyone I've ever met, and she's the sort of person that goes into a room and everything's kind of broken and chaotic, and you think, how is this going to work? And then like half an hour later there's this incredible thing that she's created.
And we did Singing in the Rain.
And it was raining.
What's very noticeable is, especially at the moment, there are people who are in this country who have got a lot more than people who've worked very, very hard all their life. What is unfair is a lot of them are not really honouring that position and paying the taxes because they're offshore. They're able to have the advice to be able to keep their money, to keep their super yachts, even though on paper they may be bankrupt, but there they are in the south of France on their yachts and laughing.
Wow.
Oh, we're in Chinatown.
I've been in here in ages.
Oh, my goodness. We are in Chinatown. Yes. Oh,
Extreme wealth and extreme poverty have seen a sharp simultaneous increase for the first time in 25 years. In Britain, the richest 1% hold more wealth than 70% of the population. Such severe inequality is estimated to cost the UK £106.2 billion a year in damage to the economy, people, and their communities. In South Africa, weekly protests rooted in poverty and joblessness are the norm. The country also experiences exceptionally high rates of murder, gender-based violence, robbery, and violent conflict.
I've always perceived rich people as arrogant people. And somehow I've been right because majority of the ones I know, they are arrogant and they are miserable. I don't wish to be rich. I just wish to be employed. Give me a job that will allow me to live my comfortable life. That's it. My dream is actually nothing else than getting a home, a house that maybe I could say it's a home for my kids. Even if I can just get a stand where I could build that 2 or 3 room shack. I want when I leave this earth, my kids to know that our mother built this for us, so they will be safe there. I think I'll start 1 shack at a time until I reach the 3 room shack.
If I'm going to my volunteer work, I like to go to Sainsbury's close to me, buy a nice cake, a big cake, so I can take it along there so they can serve it for other people, other customers who's turning up there. I think it's a good thing to help.
Hey, Jamie. Yeah, right then. I've got a cake for you. A Madeira party cake.
On 2 days during the week, I do voluntary work at a cafe called Second Chance Cafe. You can go there and you can pay what you feel. If you have nothing, you do not have to pay, but you can pay a small amount or a large amount to go towards the charity there.
We're open to everybody, so we get a lot of people coming from the food bank so they can pick up food there and then come over here and have a hot meal or vice versa.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people from the food bank, but then there's just people in general from the neighborhood. So that's the whole idea, is that you get all sorts of people coming together to chat and share a meal together. We normally wouldn't get to do that.
And another chocolate. Thank you very much.
No worries. Here you go. There's the green and red. Going from it. There you go, sir. Cheers, mate.
It cannot be that the rich will always be richer forever. One day there's gonna be a revolution in this country that no one will be able to stand if things keep on going the way they are going.
People now all want to be the same. They all want to be on a level, which can't happen.
I really want to be helpful and useful and have a point.
You've got to make it happen. Nobody else is going to make it happen for you. That's up to you.
Bravo, bravo, bravo. Thank you, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Dasa.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I hope them answers were okay for you.
Is almost zero at just 0.01%. That means that he gets 1 cent for every 100 euros per year. What's happening with his money? People are worried, says the director of the local branch of Volksbank, Elmar Schmitz. Although there hasn't been a run on the safe deposit boxes yet, there have been more requests to keep money in cash or gold.
We've seen a continuing fall in interest rates over the past 8 years. I'd need a crystal ball to tell you whether it'll stay like this for long. I think we'll have this situation for another 2 or 3 years. After that, things will change again. But we won't have the interest rates we had 10 or 20 years ago.
The manager knows who he blames for these low interest rates: the European Central Bank. The remit of the ECB is clear: price stability. It uses the base rate as its tool to deliver that, and it's been lowering the base rate steadily ever since the financial crisis, down to zero. Savers are left by the wayside, but countries with high levels of debt, such as Greece, are able to get their hands on cheap money. So too can ailing banks in southern Europe. The cheap money is supposed to fuel growth. By buying government bonds, the ECB has pumped additional trillions of euros into the markets. Otherwise, the system would face potential collapse. The price of all this is a deluge of money. The money has to go somewhere, into shares and real estate, which continue to rise in price. The result is a massive concentration of wealth right at the top. Bill Gates, the world's richest man, has a fortune of 65 billion euros. That's the market value of his shares. To compare, the total value of all of the world's cash is less than 100 times that amount, 5 trillion euros. The value of all goods and services created every year around the world is 75 trillion euros. That's the real economy. The world's debts are far higher than that. States, businesses and private individuals all have debts. A world living on credit. 705 trillion, that's the value of all derivatives, the speculative financial bets on the future. They've got almost nothing to do with real goods anymore. To recap, this is the fortune of Bill Gates. What happens when there's too much money in the world? Economist Max Otter says this deluge of cheap money isn't just flooding the big banks. He sees low interest rates as the symptom of a massive sickness in the global financial system. What's more, cheap money endangers the entire economy and promotes increasing levels of debt. He says those who believe that with the financial crisis of 2008 receding, things are now better again are much mistaken.
This influx of money is extremely dangerous. It's slow, but at some point the dam will burst and then we'll be in a huge crisis.
The biggest danger is that this flood of cheap money will split our society. It moves money from the bottom upwards, he says. A gigantic redistribution machine.
Low interest rates are demanded by many economists. They mean that states can borrow on the cheap. States can take on more debt. It also means the rich can do the same and often without any liability if they default. If I, as one of the super rich, buy a business, then I'm only liable to the extent of my holding, not with the rest of my wealth. That's a blatant injustice compared to middle-class families and regular people with home construction loans.
This flood of money doesn't just save states and banks, it also favors the rich, who use this cheap money to buy shares, companies and real estate with rapidly rising values, while the financial investments of ordinary people lose value.
The middle classes have savings and insurance policies, and these investments are the losers in a low interest rate world. Poorer citizens suffer because real estate prices are going up and therefore rents too.
London, the world's largest financial centre, illustrates very clearly the effect of this monetary deluge. Trillions are traded here. 300,000 employees in the financial sector are trying to turn money into even more money. London's own real estate prices are skyrocketing. All the major banks have offices here. This is where the money of the world's rich is invested. Roman Borisovich knows the scene well. There are neighbourhoods where millionaires are being pushed out by billionaires. Borisovich is fighting against a sell-off of the City of London to speculators. Together with colleagues, he has researched the anonymous owners of several properties. As a former banker, he's familiar with price developments.
Well, these are used houses, and again, depending on the size, it's difficult to say how deep they are. But anywhere between 3 to 5, maybe 5 to 7 million in this particular area, 5 to 7 million pounds. Now, if you think about Mews houses, this is a family place. Just think about what kind of family can afford to buy a house for 3 to 5, even for 5 to 7 million pounds.
The expensive houses are all speculative objects and empty. London belongs to investors who don't live in the city. Roman Borisovich discovered that this townhouse was sold to a Ukrainian billionaire for £66 million. On paper, the mansion is owned by a shell company.
Right now, there is an excess of 40,000 properties in London that are owned by anonymous offshore corporations, meaning that we don't know who the owners are. They could be decent people, they could be mafia. Therefore, we suspect that a lot of this money that came through London, that exploded prices here, is actually of dirty origin.
There's construction underway everywhere. Speculating with real estate is the big game in town. Trillions of euros from Russians, Germans, Chinese and Indians have poured into London.
From socio-economic perspective, it is not sustainable. You cannot have a city where residents and workers cannot live. You know, this is the problem with bubbles, is that nobody knows when they're going to burst.
But London doesn't have a monopoly on real estate bubbles. They now exist in cities around the world.
If a real estate bubble were to burst, sure, it would hit the wealthy who are invested there. But they have a diverse investment portfolio. They seize opportunities around the world. If the real estate bubble in Munich were to burst, they'll be in Rio or Tokyo. They can act globally, but the middle class can't.
As seen in the financial crisis of 2008, the middle class is hit while the rich get richer in times of boom and bust. Not much has changed. The minor regulations introduced into the financial sector aren't very tangible here in London. The speculators are looking for new ways to make more money in the world's #1 financial centre. Many transactions are now taking place in the shadow banking system. The bonuses for lucrative deals are as plentiful as ever. And Brexit will see the regulations relaxed even further. The show must go on. Alf Townsend has lived through it all. He's been driving a taxi for 54 years, chauffeuring bankers and brokers around the city. Dealing in the world's trillions has become the trump card of the British economy, he says optimistically.
It's beneficial to London. I think it's various people who invest whatever part of the world they come from. If they want to invest their money in the city, that's good for the British economy, yeah?
He too has profited, but in exchange Alf has to live far outside the city centre. £1 million for a single-room apartment? No ordinary local can afford that.
There's not many Londoners, apart from us old people, who still live in London. Most of them have sold their houses, as I was saying earlier, bought their houses off the council, made a fat profit, sold it, and moved out to a suburban hideaway, yeah?
Some leave the city entirely, and forever. Geraint Anderson was one of London's financial stars. He now lives in Wales. He paid the same for his farm as he would have to pay for a tiny single-room apartment in downtown London. But that's not the only reason why he came here. He's had enough of the financial excesses.
The city is full of greedy, ruthless, clever people. And if they put a bit more regulation, a little bit more compliance, some restrictions, these guys work out how to game the system to make sure that it benefits them.
Today he writes novels and screenplays about the financial world. He used to earn a few £100,000 a year. He didn't care who the trades hurt. That's a few years ago now. But nothing has changed, says Anderson. The system rewards those who make fat deals at the expense of others.
I make lots of strange gambles, incredible reckless decisions, but they come good. Then I make huge amounts of money. If they go bad, maybe I lose my job, but that's the only downside. So this is what is called an asymmetrical risk. It encourages short-term gambling.
Anderson is certain that the financial system will keep growing and sprawling. The prospects of big profits, the low interest rates, the deluge of money. The former financial insider believes these elements make for an explosive mix.
Therapeutic. The Ponzi system that exists is such that organizations are just borrowing large amounts of money from each other and then using that to make money by lending it to others who are using that to lend it to others, which means that you have a system where ultimately no one's really got the money that backs up all the money that's being lent out. Subsequently, when that system comes crashing down, then it's good night.
A tax on speculative financial transactions could slow this merry-go-round. However, this financial transactions tax would need to be introduced globally. But even the small-scale version with just 10 EU states failed after years of negotiations, even though German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble personally pushed for this tax. But Britain was against it, and will be even more against it in the future. London as a financial centre would suffer. That's most regrettable, because this tax would be the necessary surgery for the sick financial system. The ECB and other central banks flooding the world with cheap money isn't a cure. It's just pain relief, and in the long run, it has serious side effects. The entire setup is a system that keeps saving itself temporarily, but at some point it will inevitably fall apart. Until then, it exacerbates the enormous injustice that already exists. Those who have benefit. A handful of super-rich individuals own as much as the poorer half of the world's population combined. This flood of money is increasing the gap between rich and poor even further. People like these are struggling at the hands of low interest rates. Karl-Heinz Eich and his friends are worried. In the past, the world was a veritable paradise for savers. The economy was booming and interest rates were high, even if inflation was too. Nevertheless, successive generations lived by the motto, those who save get more out of life.
In the past, you could rely on a certain interest rate for your savings account. You could live with that. But not anymore.
In the 70s, we got a fixed rate of 7%. For a short while, we got 11%.
Karl-Heinz Eich has an appointment with his financial advisor at the bank. What should he do with his money?
We have this account, and next year a life insurance policy will mature. What can we do with this money?
The advisor wants to know about her client's readiness to take risks. He's actually more risk-averse and wants to invest his insurance money as broadly as possible. Every day it sits in the savings account, it loses purchasing power, and he knows that.
Since you're getting almost no interest, we have to see where we can generate a return.
And that means stocks and shares.
Aktienfonds, wie Sie das ja auch schon kennen, oder Immobilienfonds, wie Sie es ja auch schon kennen.
Investing more in property bonds and shares? That's what his bank advises. What else can he do in times like these?
Ganz genau.
I don't feel uneasy or really comfortable with the idea, although I've generally had positive experiences to date.
Shares, property bonds, higher risk? Whether he likes it or not, Karl-Heinz Eich has to participate in the game of the big financial world. It's an industry in party mood. Big companies are buying up competitors thanks to low interest rates, thereby increasing their share value. Only shareholders benefit from this strategy, and they tend to be affluent. German chemical giant Bayer bought American seed supplier Monsanto, for example, for 65 billion euros. The world's largest brewery, Anheuser-Busch InBev, swallowed the number 2, SAB Miller, for the equivalent of over 100 billion euros. And software giant Microsoft bought professional networking site LinkedIn for 26 billion. Companies as the playthings of international financial interests. A less prominent case, WMF has been based in Geislingen in southwest Germany since the mid-19th century. It's a brand with a world-class reputation. WMF manufactures cutlery and coffee makers. It used to be in the hands of German owners and shareholders. Its operations meant security for thousands of families. Then the financial gamblers set their sights on WMF. The company has changed owners 3 times in the past 11 years. Every time it's sold, the price goes up enormously. At the same time, wages and working conditions have worsened. There were massive protests. When the company was taken over by French group SEB, Martin Purschke hoped things would finally get better again. He's on his way to a WMF works meeting on behalf of the IG Metall labor union. He thinks it's symptomatic of today's age how easily a deal worth billions is made. The investors at the big banks can get their hands on cheap money, no problem. The new owner paid 1.6 billion euros.
It's so easy for investors to buy and sell businesses and achieve huge profits. You'd never achieve that through a company's day-to-day operations. The question for me is, to what extent is it harmful when jobs become a pawn in this game?
Inwieweit es schadet, zu was zum Spielball auch die Arbeitsplätze werden.
A works meeting during unsettling times at WMF. What are the prospects with the new owner? The staff have had bad experiences in the past.
We've been milked like a cow, bled dry. When there's nothing left to get out, we're sold off.
It's been that way for years. Everyone lines their pockets.
We can only hope the company survives and that calm is restored.
At least the employees are told today that the new buyers do not intend to cannibalize WMF further before selling it on. But union representative Martin Purschke knows the only way such deals can be paid for is through extremely low interest rates on loans. The deal at WMF went as follows. New York-based equity firm KKR bought WMF for around 660 million euros via a subsidiary located in a tax haven. KKR used 100 million of their own capital and borrowed 560 million from banks. 4 years later, KKR sold WMF to French household equipment maker SEB for 1.6 billion, a deal supported by very low interest rates. KKR made a profit of 940 million euros after repaying the loan and investing just 100 million of its own capital. That's a return of more than 800%. A lucrative deal, but only for KKR shareholders.
That's possible because at the moment there's enough money on the global market. Other investors are able to pay such prices. If the money weren't there, they wouldn't be able to shift such volumes.
Loans for almost nothing. That's the flip side of the money deluge. Financial investors do deals with huge sums that would have been unthinkable in the past in a regulated financial system. Today, many wish for a return to those times. The deregulation of the financial world has a long history. Until 1971, the world was financially stable. Currencies were covered by gold. The real economy was in balance with the amount of money available. Then, US President Nixon needed money for the Vietnam War. He switched on the money printing machine, not least because OPEC had increased oil prices. This money then flooded the world. Banks came up with new investment models. They now wanted to make money not with goods, but with money alone. This was the start of the financial industry of today. Credit cards and current accounts accelerated financial transactions. Former public responsibilities were privatized. Pensions are a case in point. The private sector is better at everything than the state, so they said. New billions came into play. In the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher deregulated the banks in London. Bill Clinton did the same later on Wall Street. Chancellor Gerhard Schröder in Germany then also bought into the deregulation philosophy. Money was to earn money and thereby create growth. The global casino was open for business.
The path of liberalization was a mistake. It's the wrong word too. If you deregulate markets that need to be regulated, then you create chaos. You unleash an avalanche of money onto the world. You can call that liberalization, but it was a policy that benefited only a few people, namely the rich. It has caused a lot of problems for the world.
The liberalization, or deregulation, allowed the deals of the banks to explode. They now acted internationally. Major banks have become investment establishments that fund huge deals. More and more money goes into speculation. That's where the big money is made. This has less and less to do with the real economy. Are the central banks alone responsible for this influx of money? Or where does it all come from? Economics students in Siegen, Germany, are investigating just that. What do people know about the origin of money? That's what they want to find out.
We're from the University of Siegen. We're doing a research project about money. What does money mean to you?
You can't do anything without money.
Where does the money come from?
Not from me, that's for sure.
How is money made?
Through work, of course. I'm not sure.
In banks. By the state.
I couldn't tell you.
The responses were sobering.
It was really varied. A lot of people had no response at all. Some said the bank or that it's just printed, and some mentioned manipulation. But most had no idea.
For years, financial expert Helge Peukert has been annoyed that money plays almost no role in economics. Many consider it just a neutral means of exchange.
It's strange that it's not just the public who are in the dark. The students' street survey demonstrated that well enough. But the money creation process also seems to be something of a mystery among academics, and even in the banking boardrooms.
The banks are silent for a reason. They would have to explain to their customers that these days it's them creating the money and them benefiting hugely as a result. As Peukert explains, money isn't neutral after all. It's not the central banks, but private banks that generate most of this new money, a process also known as deposit money creation.
Money is created when someone goes to a bank to take out a loan. The bank opens an account and issues the funds. It's then in a contract with the individual who's taken out the loan. The bank hopes that person will pay it back someday. That means the original impulse to create money comes from private banks.
That's new to most people. Many think a loan works like this. Savers take money to the bank and the bank loans this money to a customer, such as someone buying a house or running a business.
But that's not the case. If someone has savings, their money is parked in a savings account. The advantage for the bank is that person can't just take it out. When the bank issues a loan, it's created from nothing. These two processes really don't have anything to do with each other, even though it looks that way, and even though that's what the textbooks say.
This is how it works. A customer wants to take out a loan for 10,000 euros. The bank has to deposit between 1 and 3%, so at least 100 euros, with the central bank. That's it. In return, the bank is allowed to transfer 10,000 euros to the customer's account at the push of a button. The bank generates 10,000 euros of electronic money from 100 euros, and in return, it collects the interest. This creation of deposit money is a license to make money.
The banks are happy, of course, that they can do this, because that gives them a free rein. They get to keep the profits, the seigniorage. That's a few billion every year. Who'd want to miss out on that? Definitely not them.
Private banks basically create new money as they wish. And that used to be the privilege of the mint, of princes and governments. It's a privilege to create money and therefore profits out of nothing. This privilege has been in the hands of the financial industry for a long time, and in recent years it's been unchecked. Is that really such a good idea?
The big banks in particular have massively increased the money deluge in this way. As a way of imposing more controls on the financial system again, private banks could be deprived of the privilege of creating money. Developments are already underfoot in Switzerland. Zurich is a popular location with banks. There's an initiative here that advocates reining in the Swiss banks. In future, it says, only the national bank should be allowed to create money, not private banks anymore. The initiative is fighting for fully backed money and an end to the privilege of big banks to generate electronic money at the push of a button. Reinhold Haringer used to be city treasurer in St. Gallen. It was then he understood that we can't carry on with limitless loans and debts.
90% of all our money is just numbers on a computer in a bank somewhere. The banks make this money. That's what we find worrying, and that's what we want to change.
Great things have small beginnings. But members of the initiative are striking a chord with many passers-by. They distrust the financial system. The major banks are creating a spiral of loans and debt with their money creation.
I'm a former banker, now retired. I can't say that with pride anymore. They're casinos now.
The manipulation happens everywhere. We and the future generation are being robbed.
At the moment, it's primarily the big banks who are pocketing the profits of this money-making enterprise. The Swiss initiative wants these billions to benefit the country's citizens by only allowing the national bank to create money.
We want to take away the right of banks to create money, but we're not taking away a line of business. They'll still be allowed to lend money and manage assets and oversee financial transactions. The banks get to keep all of that.
They want their national bank to play a key role in the future. Private banks would only be allowed to issue loans if they have the money in their vaults, 100% secure. Private banks would not be allowed to create deposit money anymore, and the profits from this privilege would also benefit the national bank. The general public are the winners. The national bank is obligated to look after their well-being. The group want the creation of money to be state-controlled and not in the hands of private banks. Billions in interest payments would then flow into the public purse.
I support these various initiatives. Banks wouldn't be able to create new money. They'd have to work with the money they have and deposits. That's a good first step. It's not enough, but it's an important step on the path towards a fair financial system.
Ein wichtiger Schritt auf dem Weg zu einem faireren Geldsystem.
It appears absurd. On the one hand, the world is flooded with cheap money, but at the same time, some places have none. The places that don't offer big profits right away, but that in the long term would benefit the future of our society. We're at the Impact Hub in Munich, an office space for startups, a space for companies that have innovative ideas for the future, new technologies, sustainable solutions for our problems. But there's no money here. Laurin Hahn and his team are working on a car for the future, for example. Their baby goes by the name Xeon, a small electric car that generates some of its own electricity. The city runaround is designed to access electricity from the well-protected solar cells on the car body. It will also source electricity from a battery. It's an inexpensive and highly eco-friendly electric car. Developing the Xeon costs money, and no bank wants to stump up this money, says Laurin Hahn. Startups like his don't stand a chance of getting a loan from a bank, even though there's more than enough money available.
Banks are out of the question. We're too risky. Banks prefer to invest in infrastructure or the like, something that's long-term and safe, where the loan is secured. If our company goes bankrupt, they have virtually nothing they could recoup.
Laurin Hahn had to collect money from private donors online, venture capital. No loans for their projects. That's the central issue for young entrepreneurs. They can't get their hands on any of this cheap money.
At
the end of the day, it's not about money, but about creating opportunities so that people who want to do something can do something.
If you don't invest in that, or the startups can't access money easily and can't develop easily, then they'll move country.
There are lots of entrepreneurs here who want to push forward sustainable products and services. Products where the consequences for people and the environment are taken into account from the word go. Products designed to create value for society. I think it's a scandal that companies like this struggle so much to access funding from banks or major investors.
Karl-Heinz Eich in Bad Bodendorf invests in the traditional fashion. He's received the money from his insurance policy, and he's made a decision. He's looking at his house with a painter and decorator. He wants to invest some of the money in renovations. A fixed asset investment, a strategy to circumvent the low interest rates. Karl-Heinz Eich has realized in recent months how important it is to pay attention to money matters. The times when we could hand over our responsibility at the cashier's desk are over. Maybe he'll be fortunate, but one thing is certain: the sick financial system is going to cost us a lot of money.
I don't think anyone will come out of this situation unscathed. We've been living on loans. There will be wealth destruction. The current financial system is very likely to lead to the next disaster. We need a different system. But it would be enough if we just returned to what we had. Highly regulated financial markets and a banking sector under control, and whose purpose was to serve.
We have to rein in the world's financial system, But exactly the opposite is happening in the United States under Donald Trump. To make the system safer for people, a system like that envisaged by the Swiss initiative could be one building block. In particular, states have to reduce their massive debts. It's the only way we can curb this deluge of money and break through the spiral of loans. That's also why we need international debt conferences, where states mutually waive their debts. It's us, the people, who foot the bill. Big banks must cover their loans with more of their own capital than they do today. There needs to be a global tax on financial transactions, and money needs to go to places where it benefits society for our future's sake. The interests of the financial industry have determined developments in politics and society for far too long. Trump and Brexit mustn't be allowed to fuel that even further. Money is far too important to be left to the banks alone.